Hey, whenever you're ready. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's TOC meeting. So we've got a few bits on the agenda. We've got an update on the working groups, support for working group operations, and a couple of specifics under there with the repo moving and how's it going, and any updates required to Forgot Fetcher app, which I think should be Go Fetcher app. But there we go, that's an autocorrect. Ruben, Jeff, and Amelia have added in working agreement proposals for working groups, and then a slot for any other business. So it probably makes sense to start with the update on the charters for working groups. So who'd like to make a start with that one?
I haven't seen any comments or activity on the one I submitted for approval around services. So I'm going to open it up because I forgot to check before this meeting. I think we have Jan, Lee, and Stefan approving it. So I think without further ado, I'm gonna push the button at the bottom. Thanks for the help on that one.
Perfect. With regards to vulnerabilities, I'm just requesting information from the team there for GitHub IDs, and that should be coming my way pretty soon, I am led to believe. So I've removed the email addresses from there, and it's just waiting for Paul to get back with those GitHub IDs. Okay, and have we got any others outstanding to look at the moment?
Oh, on the vulnerability one, I did just suggest some changes. And then I also suggested we get GitHub handles, but then I saw Stevenson's comment about that. So I've resolved that conversation.
Okay, cool. Yeah, those stylistic edits should be absolutely fine. So that's no props at all.
I corrected
those.
One of the names on the list based on my prior contact with who I think that person is, but we might want to double check that.
I did a copy pasta, so there's always scope for errors to have crept in somewhere along the line.
That's the problem with copy pasta.
But yeah, I'll have a nosy at that this week.
I'm afraid the name is still not correct, but I can correct it.
Thanks, Stefan.
We have a single source of truth.
Yes, I do have access to the single source of truth in that particular case.
Excellent.
Called an address book.
Pretty good one to go with. I'm guessing there's been no movement on the community.
Oh, experience. Is it EI, not IE?
Yeah, exactly. That's
right.
Matthias is correct, yeah, because there are also different ways how to write Matthias in German, but this one is correct.
Cool. I'm guessing no movement on community experience at the moment.
No, I haven't had a chance to do that.
Okay. Cool. And I'm just having a look. We've got a small one open for a tweak to the foundational working group, foundational infrastructure working group to add Bosch backup and restore. So I think that's a pretty small one in there.
Yeah, we already have the release in there, but not the actual piece that we are releasing. So that feels a bit strange.
Yeah, that's okay. So I've just put a tick on that one, and I'll add the rest of the TOC in to join in on that one. Okay. Have we got anything else on the working groups?
I think the only other outstanding one is app runtime deployments, which has been languishing since we tried to put it at the start of the pack many months ago. So I don't know if anyone has any updates right now, but as we close out the rest of these, we should probably revisit that one, get that resolved as well.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
I did also add a PR to just condense all of the summary of the current working groups in the working groups.md file with the shortcut links to their discussion forums and things. So we can do async review on that, especially because Jan's not here.
Yep. Cool. All right. I will put that down as a quick action. So I'll grab that. So if no one's got anything else on working group charters, shall we move on to the support for working group operations? So the repo moving, how is it going?
It went well. At least I haven't heard that anything broke. We moved over a proxy Bosch release. Anything break? I don't think so. So yeah, with the exception of the Bosch backup and restore repository, which is still in the incubator, but that's because it doesn't have a home exactly officially yet. All of the repositories for the foundational infrastructure and app runtime platform working groups have been moved over, seemingly with no, catastrophic effects. So
Nice. And do we know of any updates required as yet to Go Fetcher?
I don't think any are needed, but yeah. Let's see, David, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm talking to my kid.
Oh, sorry.
Keep going. Carry on. Carry on.
Okay, cool. Do we have anything else in the support for working group operations at the moment?
Ruben and I set up an account for a bot that will do various things. Ruben is in charge of that. But anyway, if people need bots set up, I can help you set up bots, or we can give you access to that bot. And that's about that. The CF on Kate's working group reached out and asked about a GKE environment. So I'll work with them to get that set up for them.
Okay, excellent.
The bot is called the CF Rabbit bot. You revive the CF Rabbit with that whole logo and stuff.
I like keeping the rabbit alive. It's good. It's a good rabbit.
Every bot must have a logo.
Not to be confused with RabbitMQ, the product from VMware.
Cool. Okay, so I think it seems like a sensible point then to turn over to Ruben, Jeff, and Amelia.
Yeah, so there's a link. You should all have, I gave the entire internet comment access, so that way I didn't have to go through you and figure out your emails one by one. So you should all have access. So a little background from my point of view, what happened was you're like, okay, make a working group. And I was like, okay, I'll make a working group. Here's some proposals for my working group. And then I didn't attend the last TOC meetings, but Ruben did. And what I've heard is that you all were like, what if you made these rules for everyone and not just for your working group? So let's make some basic kind of, what do you got, like table stakes, or I don't know, initial working agreements. I couldn't think of a better word. I don't love working agreements because it's working agreements for working groups. So if you have another name for that, would love to hear it. But here are some of the first, I think 4 that we came up with. And if you open the little sidebar, you should be able to like click between them pretty easily. And so we were thinking, get them kind of a little bit nailed down here, and then we'll move them to the repo, but it's easier to edit in here. So lots of just like basic organization stuff. So the first one is GitHub teams and access. Coming up with different, standardized naming and what the teams are going to be. So that way, when we make the switch one day, when we really are going to be Only these people have approvers have right access. These will be the groups that we're using. Maybe Chris, feel free to like add some in here that's like, oh, Chris actually needs access too, you know, or something. And, you know, I don't think it's everything we need just yet.
Got it.
I'm just going to do a quick review of them all really fast. The second one is moving to a PR only workflow, right? So that's that everyone, even VMware employees, have to submit PRs to get any work in, which means we're going to be moving to reviewers. And that one also covers like, oh, that means you need someone to review it. And the way that it works in GitHub is you can't review your own PR. So if I submit a PR, I would have to get another approver. Let's see, the third one is on roadmap visibility expectations. So just some standardizations about what we expect with that. And the fourth one is Stalebot, which I actually didn't know. I think Ruben, you must have added it since I last read it. So I don't know if you want to say something about that. Maybe it's self-explanatory. Probably we're adding a Stalebot.
Yeah, we're adding a Stalebot. That's it. It's mostly because solving the problem of we have like a lot of stuff from like historical issues, pull requests, and it's a bit much for some working groups to deal with that because it's just too much to get a handle on. So by just having a Stalebot, then we have a nice way of closing those things and cleaning it up naturally, and people can reopen if it's still an issue or they still want to invest time.
Yep. So we would love your input on these before, and maybe we can discuss what the roadmap is going to be for these, or like what's going to happen next. But I really wanted to thread that needle of like, what do we want to tell all people to do versus like, what can working groups decide on their own? So we didn't want too much, you know, going into too much other proposals that you might be imagining, you know, to say everyone has to do it this way.
There were some interesting points during, so last week we had our first working group meeting with the foundational infrastructure group. And there were some interesting discussions around like who owns CI, and like, because there's a lot of repos that have a CI directory, and do we want to review PRs against a CI directory where like one company is owning that CI, right? So the other approvers don't particularly have context on that, right? Yeah, we came up with the just rule of saying like, we're not going to review CI changes if if the CI is still owned by one company, then that company can just make changes to that particular directory. And I mean, currently most of the CI for Bosch is owned by VMware. There is some things with the bionic stem cell where it's part of the foundation, but that's mostly driven now by SAP or maintained. And with the next stem cell, we're gonna have the first situation where we have like a CI operated by two companies. So that's gonna be interesting. So there it will be different. But yeah, I think those things may be interesting to call out in the document as well. That's just things that we found in like when trying to apply these things in practice. Some exceptions.
Wouldn't it make sense to, let's say, at least write down the goal to have the CI in public instead of owned by a company, so that it's owned by an account that is in the hands of the CFF Foundation, and where the workgroup leads at least get then the access rights to the, I don't know, AWS accounts. It depends, of course, of your CI solution. I mean, sometimes it's as easy as a GitHub action, and sometimes you need a whole bunch an account and bubble up and see of deployment and the whole enchilada, then it's a bit more complex. But in the long run, I think maybe it cannot be changed right away, but at least we should state the goal that we are working in this direction. I mean, that's already.
It's more of a long-term goal, right? And it's also about, so in my opinion, or like that also came up during the working group, like the working group doesn't really have an authority to decide on work, right? We cannot schedule work because it's up to the contributors or the members doing the work, right? They can decide, they have their priorities and their backlogs. We can just facilitate merging PRs, right? That's our main business, and we have a commitment from the different companies that they want to contribute people to make PRs or improve the PR workflow. I think that's how I formulated it in the working group. So like if people agree that we need to do this, then there needs to be pull requests to make this happen, or like that. But it's not, we can discuss these things in the working group, but we cannot decide we're gonna do this, right? Because it's up to the members to actually do the work. We don't have like a dedicated team of people doing this stuff. The companies have themselves, but they have their own backlogs and their own priorities. So
I feel like we would like a North Star CI goal, though. Even if it's an unfunded mandate, it's like if you're setting up something new or you're spending some time anyway. And to me, I cannot tell the right solution here. I was like, well, maybe one concourse per working group to kind of like decentralize our concourse problem, but not make too many. And then like we have budgeted in theory, and Chris can talk to us about how much money we have for this sort of problem, but we're budgeting in theory for some number of permanent CFDs of certain sizes and some number of dynamically spun up CFDs and so on. So you have to figure out how to ration those. But then GitHub Actions comes along and disrupts the whole thing. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's the North Star. But like, if you don't want to do a bunch of expensive conversion to GitHub Actions because you're not working in it, I would like to have, ideally, there's two possible end states where your CI lands. It's either in a public concourse, which is either foundation wide, or one per working group. And that remains to be decided, or maybe even more than that. But hopefully there's a finite number of concourses, and we have some commitments from some teams to help operate them in relevant areas, like the Bosch one is currently being done. Or you switch to GitHub Actions or some combination of the two. And if you switch to GitHub Actions, it's going to get paid for automatically out of the GitHub budget, and that's kind of awesome. So maybe this is something that, while it is a proposal that could be done by any working group, it seems like it's going to involve budgeting and tenancy things across the foundation. So maybe we need to see a proposal, at least at the TOC level, for this one. Or I don't care who proposes it, but ideally there's a missing proposal. And now there's a place to put it. I'm so excited.
So I guess to move forward, here's an option that I could imagine. That would be, we leave this document for another week. We ask for like comments from you all on this. We make changes based on those. And then we put it next week into a PR and then ask for the greater community. And then maybe a week after that, we can click merge together. And I would like to see these like independent of each other. Like, yeah, CI one would be nice, but like, we don't need to do that before we can like keep these going through a nice pipeline. Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
Cool. Okay, cool. So that moves us on towards any other business in that case.
Are there any updates on Jammy?
I wrote back to some people to say we're probably going to do this other thing. So I haven't gotten any feedback yet about that not being. I think if people really care about the Jammy versus focal conversation, it makes sense to show up to this meeting and have a conversation with us if you want to. Otherwise, I think we're going to go ahead with Jammy. I talked to some people that are working on build packs these days in Potato, right? And as we discussed, they're a lot of the same people. And they do not have the appetite yet to get excited about the cloud native build packs shimmed into Jammy. So if status quo happens, we will end up with the next generation of these V2 build pack, normal Cloud Foundry build pack constructs just with Jammy support. So that's the minimal effort solution as opposed to a much more expensive wrangling that could happen and could provide interesting value there. So it'll be interesting to see. I think I'm going to push them a little bit. I think Jan was excited about that. I'll see if anybody else has opinions. Feel free to reach out to any of those folks directly. I think I'll start a document that outlines the options at least and share it so that there's a place to to put your feedback in there, but we'll highlight the default option as V2 build packs on Jammy, and people can jump in if they really feel strongly that we should do something different. I think that team probably could use some help too, and there's some amount of like, well, okay, who's going to help us do this? Are we actually, and so on. So if we can show up with people to help do it, then I think that makes it easier for them, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I heard that SAP, or at least Ramon, for who's working for SAP, has already started like a short spike on Jammy. Because apparently you can update the app sources to already point to the Jammy stuff, and then try to get something to at least get a feel of how much we need to do. So
that's fantastic. It's essentially going to be Intrepid at this point, or whatever the I one is, but that's okay because it's got to be close.
Yeah, it's got to be close, right?
Just a procedural question about that one. I feel like we should do it like an official TOC vote on that or something, or maybe this is a proposal that I use in Refocus's new proposal process to like convert my Google document into a proposal that at least points to the Google document. And then, so we do need, if we want to decide this in the month of November, which I think is the right time to decide it, then somebody's got to tell me how to do it. Just like what process to follow so that I can convert my thing so that we can like do a vote on it or something in a following meeting and then put it to bed.
Yeah, and it would make sense, I think, to set up like a cross-company team or something to start doing this work also before it's like officially released, maybe, right, to get a head start. But I don't know how, I mean, that's like a resource allocation thing across companies. I don't know what the right forum for that is. Like, I'm just now, I have been asking people on Slack about these things informally. I don't know if this should go up to the TOC level, but it is an interesting thing, right? And I think the same is true for build packs, right? There's like we probably want to collaborate across companies, but then it's nice to have some like ideas about or align the resource allocation across companies so that we know these people will start at that time and align that.
Yeah, I was going to do that. I mean, we built in the document is the supply chain that talks about like what parts are dependent on each other in order to get this to roll out to happen. I think what has to happen first is we need a root file system built and a stem cell built. And until we have some reasonable confidence that those are going to be okay, we don't want to ask anybody else to do anything. But I think if you're interested in helping with that problem, we'll start broadcasting when we're starting on both of those things, which sounds like it's already started on the stem cell side, unbeknownst to me. So yeah, I agree, Ruben, there's got to be some sort of cross organization communication with the folks working in the Bosch and stem cell, or sorry, root FS, and maybe build packs after that area.
Okay, from the SAP side, I know that this discussion has been raised via Behan, and yeah, I can also bring that on the agenda again, but I cannot commit any resources. I think it's a typical company problem, but at least I can put the problems and the challenges on the table, and then usually something comes out, I would say.
Yeah, I have also brought this up with Maya on our side to have something. So it would be nice if we keep it in here, right? So we make sure it lands at the same time.
So I guess actually one of the interesting ones to pick up is how is David going to do his proposal? Via what mechanism is it going to work for us to vote on it?
I mean, it makes sense to me to convert that into some sort of document that, I mean, I guess we could, I guess it probably makes sense in the community repo itself, where maybe we need just some more space for technical decisions, like a record of those that are cross-cutting for the community.
Yeah, I think possibly sort of technical decision record might be the way to go.
Which is different than like processes, like how you repo branch protections and how you commit, because that's like an ongoing thing which can be evolved. This is like a one-time event. Like in a year or two, nobody cares about this.
The past there was a dedicated project for that CFAR where where it was tried to do such things, right?
Oh, the CFAR proposals?
Yeah, that we discussed the space supporter role. Well, it's maybe even more already detailed, but I don't know if the community repository is the place, maybe a separate cross-cutting proposal.
Yeah, I guess I've seen like an RFC's repo in other projects that, I mean, that could store a lot of, I mean, we could use that for both things that are cross-cutting across all the working groups, and then maybe even for individual working groups as a common place for those. I mean, that's maybe one option that we should think about. Because it would be kind of nice to separate the process things, keep those in community, and from more actual technical decisions.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. There's this thing called folders. That's pretty cool that we could use instead. It's all the kids are doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because like Subversion allows you to have folders and like CVS doesn't.
David, are you saying you just keep it all in the community repo and use some folders in there?
I don't know, man. It just seems convenient. I guess there's a possibility that we'll have people who are significant contributors to one type of thing, but not others, right? And so like the people who are like leads on our process could be direct writers to the community repo, and the people who are technical leads could be direct writers to the other repo. But there's like a lot of overlap there right now. So I'm not sure it actually matters.
I mean, we could also just keep it in the community repo, and if we need to move it out later, we could do that, especially if we're intending to keep like an immutable log of decisions, kind of ADR or RFC style.
I'm just going to post a quick link to a repo that we use for some RFCs, which might be useful to maybe steal some of that process. It doesn't have to live in a completely separate thing, but so it could just be a folder within.
That's very cool. You have so many of these. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's only for gov.uk. That's not for everything that we do either. Okay, so is it worth us having a look at that and some other options and putting it on the agenda for next week?
Sounds good to me.
Cool. I'll get that down as an action point / agenda item in a second then in that case. Have we got anything else for this week?
Eric, I'm directing this question at you, but this is probably for all of the TOC. Any particular difficulty in getting together that community working group? Just wanted to know. And the reason I ask is, while all of the working groups are like crucial and everything, the foundation is probably going to work most closely with the charter identified for the community working group in terms of outreach and other things. So I just wanted to know if there's anything that we can do to help, or if it's just delayed. So just curious more than anything.
Yeah, sure. I think, I've mostly been targeting the folks who've worked on the docs repos in the past, and some of that team structure has changed around a bit over the past couple of years. So I'm trying to identify the right people for that. But yeah, this also, as we are looking at broadening the scope of that to be around that whole community experience and not just docs, then there's probably some other groups of people that might be interested in getting involved too.
Yeah, so as a follow-up, do you think it's worth making like a post or two on forums or some of the mailing lists, or I don't know, any other places that?
Yeah, probably, actually. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I've got to drop actually myself.
All right.
But yeah, great idea.
Yeah, I'll catch you on Slack and discuss this later. Thanks.
That's good. Thanks.
Cool. So, yep, sounds like it's drawing to a close for this week. So thank you very much, all, and I'll catch you next week. Cheers.
You. Ciao.
Bye-bye.